madness. This is Sparta!
320 shocking facts that'll blow your mind. It looked like just another swords and sandals epic. Ancient warriors, battlefield carnage, and a legendary last stand. But 300 was far stranger and far riskier than anyone expected. A controversial visual style that divided critics, intense training that pushed actors to the brink, and a production plagued by political backlash and historical outrage. What was meant to be a simple comic book adaptation turned into a cultural lightning rod, redefining action cinema and sparking endless debate. But how close did the project come to failure? What extremes did the cast and crew endure for the vision we saw on screen? And what shocking truths about its making are still little known today? Prepare to discover 20 shocking facts that'll blow your mind about 300. Shocking Fact 1. The movie nearly got cancelled before shooting began. Before 300 became a roaring box office hit, it nearly didn't exist at all. Studios were terrified by the idea of adapting Frank Miller's graphic novel, a violent, hyper-stylized take on ancient warfare. Executives thought the project was too niche, too strange, and far too risky to fund. At one point, the film was so close to being scrapped that cast members were warned not to get comfortable. What saved it? Zack Snyder's relentless determination and his test footage, which proved the comic's surreal visuals could come to life. Without that gamble, 300 would have been abandoned as a failed experiment. Instead, it became a legend carved in blood and bronze. 300 rose from near cancellation to cinematic legend, saved by Zack Snyder's vision and a gamble that paid off in blood and bronze. Shocking Fact 2. Gerard Butler's training was brutal beyond belief. Gerard Butler didn't just play King Leonidas, he lived like him. To prepare, Butler endured one of the most punishing training regimens in Hollywood history. His workouts included tire flips, Olympic lifts, endless push-ups, and non-stop sword drills. The goal wasn't just muscle, it was endurance, intensity, and raw Spartan toughness. Trainers refused to let him rely on stunt doubles, insisting he fight and bleed through the battles himself. Butler later admitted he often collapsed from exhaustion, sometimes vomiting between takes. But the pain paid off. His shredded, war-ready physique became the visual anchor of the film, and his performance radiated the unyielding strength of a man leading 300 warriors into certain death. Gerard Butler's brutal training pushed him to exhaustion and even vomiting, but it forged the unforgettable Spartan king Leonidas. Shocking Fact 3. The iconic "This is Sparta" almost didn't happen. One of the most quoted lines in movie history, "This is Sparta," was almost left on the cutting room floor. When Gerard Butler delivered the line during filming, some executives thought it was too over-the-top, too theatrical, and completely unbelievable. They worried audiences would laugh at it instead of cheering. But Zack Snyder trusted Butler's intensity, keeping the explosive delivery intact. The moment when Leonidas kicks the Persian messenger into the pit became cinema legend, shouted in dorm rooms, gyms, and memes for years to come. What could have been dismissed as cheesy turned into a cultural battle cry, forever tied to both Butler's career and the film's fiery legacy. "This is Sparta" was nearly cut, but keeping Butler's explosive delivery turned it into an unforgettable cinematic battle cry. Shocking Fact 4. The cast was forced into a secret boot camp. Forget Hollywood glamour. The cast of 300 was thrown into what can only be described as a military boot camp. For weeks, the actors trained together under punishing conditions designed to break them physically and mentally. The workouts weren't just about getting ripped. They were about building Spartan brotherhood. Push-ups, squats, and battle drills went on until exhaustion, with no excuses allowed. The grueling program bonded the cast so intensely that by the time cameras rolled, they weren't just actors. They were warriors who had earned the right to call themselves Spartans. Their sweat and pain translated into authenticity on screen, giving 300 its ferocious, unrelenting edge. The 300 cast endured a punishing boot camp, forging real Spartan brotherhood that made their on-screen battles feel unstoppable. Shocking Fact 5. The film's visual style was a total accident. The unique, dreamlike look of 300 wasn't always part of the plan. Zack Snyder originally pitched a more traditional historical epic, but budget constraints made that impossible. Instead, he leaned into Frank Miller's graphic novel aesthetic, using green screens, digital backdrops, and stylized slow motion to mimic the comic's pages. What started as a compromise turned into the film's defining trait. The hyper-saturated skies, golden glows, and surreal battles made audiences feel like they were stepping into a myth. Ironically, what was meant to save money became a revolution in filmmaking, sparking a wave of copycats and forever changing how action movies looked. 300's iconic surreal visuals were born from budget limits, turning a compromise into a groundbreaking cinematic style. Shocking Fact 6. The actors were told to skip cardio. In most movies, actors are encouraged to slim down with cardio, but for 300, the trainers gave the opposite advice. No long-distance running, no endurance-based workouts. Why? Zack Snyder wanted the Spartans to look like ancient warriors, not modern athletes. Instead, the focus was on building dense, explosive muscle through high-intensity training, lifting heavy, sprinting, and fighting drills. The results were striking. The cast looked carved out of stone, their bodies reflecting strength over sleekness. This bold move set 300 apart visually, creating a legion of warriors who appeared both raw and primal, a look that became instantly iconic and impossible for audiences to forget. The 300 actors skipped cardio, focusing on explosive strength to achieve the raw, stone-carved Spartan look that became iconic. Shocking Fact 7. Xerxes' look took hours of painful makeup. Rodrigo Santoro, who played the God King Xerxes, endured a daily nightmare in the makeup chair. To transform him into the towering, pierced ruler, it took nearly 6 hours every day of prosthetics, metallic jewelry, and gold body paint. The process was so uncomfortable that Santoro could barely sit or rest between takes. Worse, the piercings glued to his face often ripped his skin when removed, leaving him in pain after filming. Despite the misery, Santoro embraced the transformation, delivering a performance both mesmerizing and terrifying. His larger-than-life image became one of the most unforgettable villains in cinema, proof that beauty, or in this case intimidation, often comes with real suffering. Rodrigo Santoro endured 6 hours of painful makeup daily to become Xerxes, creating one of cinema's most unforgettable villains. Shocking Fact 8. The famous Oracle scene was filmed underwater. The haunting scene of the Oracle, portrayed by Kelly Craig, was unlike anything else in the movie, and its surreal look came from a bizarre filming trick. Instead of using CGI for her flowing movements, the crew filmed Craig underwater in a tank, letting her hair and limbs move with eerie, weightless grace. Later, the footage was superimposed onto the temple set, creating a hypnotic, dreamlike effect. The shoot wasn't easy. Craig had to hold her breath for long takes while maintaining her ethereal, trance-like expression. The result? A mystical sequence that felt truly otherworldly, blurring the line between prophecy and nightmare in a way audiences never forgot. The Oracle scene was filmed underwater, giving Kelly Craig's movements an eerie, dreamlike quality that made the sequence unforgettable. Shocking Fact 9. A Spartan shield nearly crushed Gerard Butler. While filming one of the intense battle sequences, Gerard Butler narrowly escaped disaster. The shields used by the actors were heavy and often unwieldy, especially when swinging swords or charging in groups. During one chaotic take, a shield slipped at the wrong moment and slammed into Butler's face with bone-crushing force. The impact was so severe, he feared his jaw might be broken. Production stopped briefly, but Butler insisted on continuing, even through swelling and bruising. For him, pain became part of the role. That level of commitment bled into every frame, convincing audiences that Leonidas, was more than a king. He was a warrior forged by suffering. A Spartan shield nearly crushed Gerard Butler, but he pushed through the pain, making Leonidas's warrior intensity feel real. Shocking fact. 10. Zack Snyder used real dead animals for set authenticity. One of the more controversial behind-the-scenes choices was Zack Snyder's insistence on using real animal carcasses to decorate Spartan encampments and battlefields. Instead of relying on props, Snyder believed that authentic textures and decay would create a grittier, more realistic environment. Cast members described the smell as overwhelming, with some even gagging between takes. Crew members complained, but Snyder was unwavering. He wanted audiences to feel the raw brutality of war, not the polished cleanliness of Hollywood sets. The gamble worked. The film's grim, blood-soaked atmosphere felt tangible and lived in. But for the actors stuck in the stench, it was a Spartan ordeal all its own. Zack Snyder used real animal carcasses on set, creating a gritty, blood-soaked authenticity that made the Spartan world feel terrifyingly real. Shocking fact 11. The movie sparked international outrage. When 300 was released, not everyone was cheering. In Iran, the government condemned the film, calling it an insult to their history and culture. Xerxes and his Persian army were portrayed as grotesque, monstrous, and corrupt, an image many Iranians saw as a deliberate attack on their national identity. The controversy even made headlines worldwide, with officials claiming Hollywood was waging cultural propaganda. Zack Snyder defended the film, arguing it was based on Frank Miller's graphic novel, not real history. Still, the outrage gave 300 an unexpected political weight, sparking debates about cultural representation. What was meant to be a stylized action film suddenly became a lightning rod for international controversy. 300 ignited international outrage, with Iran condemning its portrayal of Persians, turning a stylized action film into a political flashpoint. Shocking fact. 12. The Spartan abs were real. Mostly, one of the most debated questions after 300's release was simple. Were those washboard abs real? Surprisingly, yes, for the most part. The cast underwent grueling months of training, forging bodies that looked carved out of stone. But lighting tricks and a touch of makeup enhanced the definition, ensuring every muscle popped on camera. Rumors spread that CGI had been used, but Zack Snyder swore otherwise, claiming the actors' physiques were authentic. Trainers backed him up, revealing the 300 workout that became legendary among fitness enthusiasts. Still, many agreed the combination of real muscle and cinematic tricks created a physique so perfect it felt almost unreal. The Spartan abs were real, built through brutal training, with just a touch of lighting and makeup to make them pop on screen. Shocking fact 13. The Oracle scene sparked backlash for exploitation. While visually stunning, the Oracle sequence wasn't without controversy. Actress Kelly Craig performed topless, her body filmed in slow, sensual movements. Many critics accused the filmmakers of sexualizing her character unnecessarily, turning a mystical role into something exploitative. Behind the scenes, Craig endured grueling underwater shoots, sometimes shivering from the cold, all while maintaining the trance-like performance demanded of her. The backlash came swiftly after release, with some calling the scene gratuitous. Others defended it as artistic. Whether praised or condemned, the Oracle moment remains one of the film's most talked-about sequences. Proof that beauty and controversy often walk hand in hand in cinema. The Oracle scene sparked backlash for exploitation, blending Kelly Craig's grueling underwater performance with controversy over unnecessary sensuality. Shocking fact. 14. Critics predicted the movie would fail. When early trailers dropped, critics scoffed. Many dismissed 300 as a niche, over-stylized comic book adaptation that would fade into obscurity. Some even mocked the dialogue as laughable, predicting it would flop at the box office. Instead, the film became a global phenomenon, earning over $450 million and reshaping Hollywood's approach to graphic novel adaptations. The critics' miscalculation only fueled the film's reputation, turning it into the ultimate underdog success story. Audiences didn't care about the skeptical reviews. They embraced the spectacle, the blood, and the operatic battles. Ironically, the same critics who trashed it later admitted its influence couldn't be ignored. Critics predicted 300 would fail, but it became a $450 million phenomenon, proving audiences loved the blood-soaked spectacle. Shocking fact 15. The film changed action movies forever. Before 300, action films relied heavily on traditional fight choreography and practical effects. Zack Snyder shattered that mold, merging hyper-stylized slow motion with groundbreaking CGI backgrounds. The speed-ramping effect, shifting between slow motion and full speed in the same shot, became instantly iconic and copied endlessly afterward. Films like Watchmen, Sucker Punch, and even John Wick carried echoes of Snyder's visual revolution. The ripple effect didn't stop at movies. Video games, commercials, and music videos mimicked the look of 300. What began as an experimental risk turned into a blueprint for modern cinematic spectacle, proving that a bold visual gamble could reshape an entire genre. 300 reinvented action cinema, with Snyder's stylized slow motion and CGI effects setting a blueprint copied across films, games, and media. Shocking fact. 16. Real Spartans would have mocked the costume. While the film's leather briefs, red capes, and sculpted abs became legendary, historians pointed out that real Spartan warriors would have laughed at them. In reality, Spartans wore heavy bronze armor, helmets, and large shields for protection. Zack Snyder stripped all that away for style, wanting his Spartans to look raw, exposed, and godlike. The decision paid off cinematically, creating some of the most iconic warrior imagery in modern film. But critics accused the movie of turning history into fantasy cosplay. Still, audiences didn't care. Those costumes cemented themselves in pop culture, inspiring endless parodies, Halloween costumes, and even gym motivation posters. Historical accuracy may have been tossed aside, but cinematic legend was born. Real Spartans would have laughed at the skimpy costumes, but Snyder's stylized warriors became iconic pop culture legends. Shocking fact. 17. Gerard Butler paid a heavy price. Butler's performance as King Leonidas was unforgettable, but it came at a cost. He pushed his body beyond limits, enduring months of punishing workouts and brutal stunt rehearsals. During filming, he suffered torn muscles, dislocated shoulders, and countless bruises. One particularly bad injury left him in physical therapy for months after shooting Wrapped. Butler later admitted the role permanently altered his body, leaving lingering pain even years later, yet he had no regrets. For Butler, Leonidas wasn't just a role. It was his defining moment, the performance that transformed him from a rising actor into a global icon. The scars, both physical and mental, became part of his Spartan legacy. Gerard Butler endured torn muscles, dislocated shoulders, and lasting pain, but his sacrifices forged the unforgettable King Leonidas. Shocking fact. 18. Zack Snyder hid surprising Easter eggs. For all its blood and spectacle, 300 contained subtle hidden details that many fans missed. Snyder, known for meticulous visuals, snuck in references to Frank Miller's original comic panels, recreating entire frames shot for shot as homage. In some battle sequences, background soldiers are seen in near-freeze poses, mimicking classical Greek art. Even Leonidas's final stand mirrors ancient sculpture poses of dying warriors. Snyder also left symbolic nods to Greek mythology, shadows forming shapes, lightning bolts striking like divine intervention. These Easter eggs rewarded sharp-eyed fans, proving that beneath the chaos, 300 was crafted with layers of meaning. It wasn't just style, it was Snyder's visual love letter to history, myth, and art. Snyder hid subtle Easter eggs in 300, from comic homages to Greek art poses, turning the blood-soaked spectacle into a layered visual masterpiece. Shocking fact. 19. The film sparked a wave of copycats. The success of 300 didn't just inspire audiences. It inspired Hollywood to flood theaters with lookalikes. Films like Immortals, Clash of the Titans, and even Spartacus. Blood and Sand on TV all borrowed Snyder's stylized violence, slow-motion battles, and gritty heroics. Even video games leaned into the Snyder look, embracing sepia tones and exaggerated carnage. While some succeeded, many flopped, accused of being shallow imitations. The irony? Critics who once dismissed 300 now blamed it for spawning a wave of inferior copycats. Still, imitation is the highest form of flattery, and 300's influence proved it had carved itself into the DNA of modern pop culture. 300 sparked a flood of copycats in films, TV, and games, cementing Snyder's style as the blueprint for modern epic action. Shocking fact: 20. The sequel almost destroyed the legacy. After the groundbreaking success of 300, a sequel was inevitable. But when 300: Rise of an Empire hit theaters in 2014, it was met with disappointment. Despite stunning visuals and Eva Green's standout performance, the film lacked the raw impact of the original. Critics slammed it as unnecessary, and audiences quickly forgot it. The failure nearly tarnished 300's reputation, turning a legendary franchise into a cautionary tale. Yet the original film's power endured, untouched by its weaker follow-up. Fans still return to the first movie, the one that redefined action cinema. 300 remains immortal in its own right, even if its legacy was tested by a flawed sequel. The sequel stumbled, but 300's original glory endured, proving the first film's legendary status is untouchable. 300 wasn't just an action epic. It was a gamble, an experiment in style and brutality that nearly tore its creators apart. But its survival turned it into something greater, a cinematic legend that still echoes in battle cries decades later. Maybe that's why it never leaves us, because it proves that even bloodshed can forge legends. If this uncovered a side of 300 you didn't know, share your favorite shocking fact in the comments. And make sure to like and subscribe for more untold stories from the films that refuse to die. Remember, the fight never truly ends.